join us in honoring this incredible history, and together we will give America the greatest birthday celebration our country has ever seen.
America's 250th anniversary.
We're patriots, we're God-fearing folks that love our nation, and we're celebrating 250 years.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the words written 250 years ago by Thomas Jefferson, perhaps the most famous lines in the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America, the founding document then, through which 13 colonies severed their ties with the British Empire on July the 4th, 1776, a huge anniversary that Americans are celebrating this year. An historic occasion that Donald Trump intends to turn into the crowning achievement of his second term, especially since this year also marks his own 80th birthday. For the occasion, he has changed the face of Washington and imposed his own image on passports. And then, above all, there is his vision of American history, which he would like to see take centre stage in museums, national parks, and on monuments. Fanny Allard with Fraser Jackson revisit the US 250 years after the Declaration of Independence.
In Philadelphia, the birthplace of US independence and the nation's first capital, history is all around.
The Declaration is signed here on August 2nd, 1776.
Or at least the history that isn't inconvenient. Until recently, an exhibition a stone's throw from Independence Hall told the story of 9 slaves owned by George Washington, the nation's father.
Here, this was the original executive mansion. So this is the first White House. Here you have the original foundations of the building. But you'll notice that there's some installation, there's some signage here missing. Here. This is missing. It's a place where some of them once stood. We're seeing that this memorial is not finished in the way that it's supposed to be. Hey, it was open. It was complete, and for 15 years, everything was okay. Now suddenly Donald Trump comes in, and suddenly there's a problem with telling the story of slavery.
In January, federal national park agents dismantled the exhibition on the orders of the Secretary of the Interior. It was a direct result of a presidential decree aimed at restoring truth and common sense in American history, which says the past of the United States must not tarnish the image of its great national figures, an unfathomable notion for our tour guide.
George Washington, yes, was a great general. Yes, he's the first president of the United States. He was also what they called an Indian fighter. He was also a slave owner. He owned 316 people in his lifetime. We're telling the full story of this gentleman, that's all. Like many of the founding fathers, there's a lot of contradictions. In fact, Ben Franklin himself would say we are all contradictions. And it's only by telling the full history, good, bad, indifferent, that we can build this better country and better world that we want.
Take over, and I'm going to introduce.
On this day, a gathering has been organized to commemorate Ona Judge, one of George Washington's slaves whom escaped. It's an annual celebration that has taken on added significance this year, as only half of the 34 torn-down information panels have been reinstalled.
Today is the most important Ona Judge Day we've had in the 23 years we've been celebrating this since 2003.
Since the presidential decree, elements related to slavery, Native Americans, or even climate change have been modified or removed from at least 25 national parks across the country.
This is Whipped Peter. In the same way the Trump administration tried to shut down this site here, they shut down this image by removing it from a federal park. We want to make sure that the same thing that happened to Peter does not happen to this site.
The change of narrative pushed by the administration doesn't stop at national parks. Also drawing the president's ire is the Smithsonian, the largest cultural complex in the world, whose content Donald Trump deems too woke. Last August, the White House requested a full review of the content of all its museums, as well as exhibitions planned for the US's 250th anniversary.
It was clear from the tone of the letter and from what they called for that they wanted to go through all that material, looking for keywords probably about gender, about race, about slavery, about settler colonialism, all of the things which the American right wing thinks we shouldn't be talking about.
In response, James Millward founded an organization whose mission is to catalog elements from the Smithsonian's 21 museums.
What was the one? Was it Wilson, I think? Let's see. That's Roosevelt. Where is he?
Here in the American President's Gallery, the caption underneath Donald Trump's portrait disappeared for a while.
Back in January, they changed the photographs and put up this black and white one, which Trump clearly likes. And at that time, they took away a longer biography and put the short text up that simply had the facts of his presidency and the name of the photographer. That was when we became concerned, because when they changed that sign, they took away key information about his first administration, namely that he'd been impeached twice, the insurrection on January 6th, and also that he lost the 2020 election. We shouldn't have outside political pressure on our museum curators and historians to do that kind of thing.
After a closure in the spring, the gallery reopened with new, more sober text to accompany the portraits of recent presidents, from Jimmy Carter to Donald Trump. Now, Trump's impeachment record is mentioned once again.
It's not in the form of a paragraph or a narrative, it's just as almost like bullet points on a CV, but at least it's here. It seems overwhelmingly clear that what matters most to Trump is Trump.
Donald Trump certainly seems determined to leave his mark on history, both rhetorically and on the streets of the nation's capital. Philip Kennicott is an architecture critic. He studies how public spaces tell a story of societies and democracies. For him, the American president is verging on leading a cult of personality.
This doesn't feel American to me at all. It feels more the authoritarian playbook. It feels like an intrusion into public space, an unwanted, unwelcome, and even dangerous imposition of a personal brand, a highly partisan brand, onto a public building that is meant to be nonpartisan.
Supposedly independent, Trump's face is now plastered on the Department of Justice. The Departments of Agriculture and Labor, both adorned with a 9-meter-high banner of Trump.
We're just not used to this in democracy. Even something as basic as putting your image or your name on the currency, that hasn't happened in the United States, so Trump is trying very hard to get that through here as well. That sort of cult of the leader's image, his name, his signature, that's new. It's unprecedented, and it's worrisome.
Trump has also seized on America's celebration of 250 years of independence to impose his image. His likeness is on the National Park's annual pass. It's even on a limited edition passport and a commemorative gold coin. And the president isn't stopping there. Trump is breaking traditions which dictate buildings only be named after dead presidents, affixing his name to the United States Institute for Peace and the Kennedy Center, a performing arts center named after slain President JFK.
The center really dates from this period in the middle of the last century when the United States is trying to compete with the Soviet Union and to compete for the sort of hearts and minds of the unaffiliated world. And that included things like the space program, championing science, and among these things was the Kennedy Center, the idea that the United States was now a world power after the Second World War, and it needed to be a cultural power as well. And when Donald Trump took over it and put his name on it, it became a very political organization. And I think it now remains something that's kind of caught up in the tensions and the fractures of American society.
Donald Trump's grasp on this iconic cultural center led to several artists pulling out of shows and a nearly 50% drop in ticket sales. The president then announced a 2-year closure of the Kennedy Center for renovations before a court blocked his ambitions.
There was a court ruling late in May that said that the name had to come down off the center. It's not clear what the immediate future will be, especially given that they've had to essentially cancel most of the forthcoming seasons.
Take it down! Take it down! Take it down!
A few days after our interview, a court dismissed the Trump administration's appeal and ruled in favor of this Kennedy Center board member.
Congress is the only group
that can remove the name or make a change. It's in the statute, and so we were on the side of justice. And one of the things we've always said, if we're going to fight for the people, if we're going to fight for our democracy, we have to make sure that we respect the rule of law. So we're very excited that the three-panel judge upheld our position on not giving him a stay. So it's coming down.
For the artists and activists on site, the decision shows that Trump's power isn't totally unchecked.
So excited to get his name off of there. You know, I always say this all the time. Who on earth thinks it's a good idea to put your name above the name of an assassinated president?
What? Glad to see it finally coming down. Glad to see the wheels of justice finally doing a solid for us.
Trump's power has also overhauled the US education system. He's put an end to DEI policies designed to provide opportunities to minorities and correct inequalities.
We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies.
Schools from kindergarten to college are beginning to scrub their websites and change programming in response to President Trump's policies.
Schools and universities have less than 2 weeks to eliminate diversity initiatives or face losing federal funding.
The Trump administration calls it common sense. Critics call it an all-out assault on diversity.
It was a decision which rippled through many institutions, but was deemed necessary by some professors who consider the measures to be counterproductive.
Because they thought this was before it was very difficult to kind of challenge a broadly accepted view on, say, a particular social or political issue. In a way, this kind of contradicted the premise of academic freedom. One of the major changes that has arisen with the new administration is a real emphasis on diversity of thought and opinion, and making sure that multiple viewpoints are being expressed in the classroom.
Jessica Triscoe teaches women in conflict zones. For her, diversity policies have sometimes led universities to drift away from their original purpose.
There was a lot of emphasis on policing the language you used in the classroom. So even now, we're still getting a lot of emphasis in our diversity training about making sure you're using the correct pronouns, but also, you know, this shift to kind of gender neutral language in everything. And that's really hard when you're teaching on women's studies and gender studies, because there are these different categories, and they're really important to my analysis as a social scientist, to understanding women's historical and contemporary experiences of armed conflict. And so using the term, you know, female soldier, it is a meaningful difference.
With the US celebrating 250 years of independence, even history has become a flashpoint. On one side, America 250, the bipartisan commission created by Congress. On the other, Freedom 250, an initiative supported by the White House.
250, like I said, Prager. There's something unmistakably American about a truck on 18 wheels. It moves, it reaches, it carries what matters. At Freedom 250, we're building a national movement, one that invites every American, every school, every community, every family to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Donald Trump's detractors accuse him of having created a competing structure with the goal of centering the anniversary around him, but the committee chairman denies any political bias.
Freedom 250 is a nonpartisan organization. It's not even a bipartisan organization, and that's how we're set up. It's a public-private, so you know, freedom is for all Americans, right? So that's really an important part of it because we have a diverse country, so we celebrate that diversity.
6 of these trucks have traveled across the US in recent months, inside mobile museums where America's condensed history is told on the walls and through AI.
My friends and fellow citizens, welcome. My name is George Washington.
Democrats have accused the administration of having diverted $100 million from America 250's Congress-approved budget to the White House's rival organization. The controversy doesn't stop there. The Freedom 250 committee operates thanks to private partnerships with large defense and tech companies like Palantir, an AI giant whose services are used by American intelligence agencies.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for visiting Freedom Drum.
A partnership between private companies and national celebrations has raised questions, but not for these Americans who like the initiative and want to focus on what unites them.
To me, a celebration should be a happy, good time, because you can always find the bad in everything.
You know what? If it was Joe Biden doing it, the people on the right would be mad about it. So
it's a time to bring people together, regardless of our differences, and you know, the American experience, the American experiment is a great and wonderful thing.
In a polarized America, Donald Trump has proved to be the ultimate lightning rod. This year, however, the US celebrates 250 years of an imperfect yet consequential history. A country born from an idea which continues to shape the world, despite its deep internal divisions.